Monday, Schein Time. The Browns have a starting quarterback. I'm going to tell you why they chose the wrong man. Geno Smith balls out. Bo Nix returns. Raiders survive a scare. And what the hell's going on in college football? And how is Lane Kiffin always in the middle of it? Can the Yankees or Phillies give the Dodgers a run for their money? And my mixed feelings on the two big NBA moves over the weekend. Schein Time now.
I think the whole world knows it has nothing to do about the performance. It's a little bit personal than that. So I think that's it's a disrespectful thing. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna keep whatever I feel with me and my family internally on how I feel about that. And yeah, just move on.
But don't you think, Deshaun, that winning and playing better would eliminate some of that booing?
Last time I played on this field, I tore my Achilles. And that same fan base, they cheered when I got hurt. So does that have to do with, what does that have to do with anything about performance? When a person get hurt, especially for your own city, and they cheer.
Does any of that make you regret coming here?
No, I don't regret anything in my life. You know, I think the Lord put me through situations for a reason, so I don't regret anything at all. But you know, I had different thoughts on how it was going to be, but, you know, it is what it is.
Hey, how's it feel to get booed? I mean, it's a pretty easy question. It sucks. I don't want to get booed. It comes with the territory. You don't want to get booed? Let's play good football. Let's play good at quarterback. Let's play good on offense. Let's play good as a team. And then you don't have to worry about all that.
I think it's more about a bigger purpose of just respect. You know, it's just a respect thing that I feel like should be there. Because we all out there trying to do our best and trying to serve the franchise the best way possible. We going out there to win games. We're doing everything we can do. So, you know, I don't really appreciate that.
And after all of that, it certainly seemed like perhaps Deshaun Watson had both played and talked his way out of Cleveland. Instead, Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport reported this morning, Todd Monken has selected Deshaun Watson to be his starting quarterback for Cleveland Week 1 in Jacksonville. And just like that, hope goes to die. Deshaun Watson is the worst, the absolute worst. Terrible human, terrible player. He doesn't care about Cleveland. Deshaun Watson hates football. Deshaun Watson hates the fans. Deshaun Watson hates you. And this is the guy the Cleveland Browns name as the starting quarterback. Look, Todd Monken said a lot over the weekend. The clip that we just played was perfect. Deshaun Watson said a lot. And honestly, I have no expectations for Watson. As a human being, as a leader, as a winner, as a worker, I think Deshaun Watson is the worst. And the guy that we saw at Clemson, guy that we saw in Houston, that guy was clearly a fraud covering up all of this. Loser, grotesque, awful behavior. Everything that transpired with the accusations of 24 women, inappropriate touching and sexual assault. Deshaun Watson is as low can be as a person and a player. And honestly, we talked about this throughout the course of the offseason here on Schein Time. And we stressed this morning after watching what transpired over the weekend. Todd Monken, I think, had his hands tied because Jimmy Haslam, who's paying the worst contract in the history of the NFL, the worst contract in the history of sports. Remember, this is important here. Deshaun Watson was going to Atlanta. The deal was done. He was getting traded from the Houston Texans to the Atlanta Falcons. And Jimmy Haslam swooped in and gave up all those first-round picks and gave Deshaun Watson a 5-year, $230 million guaranteed contract, which was insane at the time, even more insane when you look back at it. And I firmly believe, and I said as much, that whoever became the head coach of the Cleveland Browns had to start Deshaun Watson at quarterback because Jimmy Haslam was trying to save and salvage something. And if we're paying him all that cash, and basically Watson has been robbing the Browns and Cleveland blind over the last few years, you had to try and get something, okay? Monken, when he talked to the press, he dropped bars and gems, and Monken's amazing talking to the media. Loved when he said, well, if at the end of the day in a service industry, if you're not getting it done, you're going to get booed. If someone serves you soup in a restaurant and it's cold, you're not going to tip or leave a bad Yelp review or get angry. It's a service industry. And at the end of the day, if you want to ultimately get cheered, you play well. Even if you're a terrible human, and there are plenty of examples of this in the NFL and all pro sports, winning is the ultimate deodorant. As Seinfeld once said, you ultimately cheer for the laundry, for the jersey. Deshaun Watson can never figure that out. Also, at the end of the day, when Monken said that, well, it's going to be a spot in a situation where we're not going to let one emotional press conference impact who starts, even as he's dropping all those great lines, and Watson on the field, where his completion percentage against Buffalo's in the toilet, threw a bad interception, getting booed left and right. You know, it's a performance industry. If you're in the kitchen, you got to be able to deal with the fire and the heat and the smoke. When Monken said, we're not going to let one emotional moment impact it, you knew if you're a diehard fan of the Cleveland Browns, you were dead on arrival, because the Monk man was not acting alone. The code red was coming from above. This was all about Jimmy Haslam, and it just sucks and it's sad. We've been screaming on Schein Time, Shedeur Sanders had to be the quarterback. And I'm not one of those who's, in the press, who has a platform, who carries the water for Shedeur and the Sanders family. No, not in any way, shape, or form. But I don't think Shedeur deserved to fall to day 3 in the draft. I think Shedeur Sanders played in a solid fashion as a rookie, and I think he should have been the starting quarterback for Cleveland. So this way, you could look at Sanders and say either he plays well or he's solid enough, and you have 2 first-round picks next year, and it's obviously going to be a quarterback-heavy class with Arch Manning and Dante Moore and others. We'll see who else emerges during the course of the college football season. But you could find out if Sanders could be the guy. You know Deshaun Watson's not the answer on the field, off the field, can't stay healthy. QBR, quarterback rating, completion percentage, the turnover ratio, it's all in the toilets. He is the worst. He can't stay available. He's a terrible human. He's a terrible quarterback. And there's no shot he's the week 1 starter next year. And the sad thing is the Browns actually have some legitimate players, some legitimate talents at the skill positions. They did a great job drafting young receivers. I love Fandom at tight end. They can run the ball with authority. What the hell is that? That press conference from Watson was just awful. He doesn't have any regrets in his life. You want to ask the 24 women if he should have regrets? He doesn't have any regrets in terms of coming to Cleveland. He knows he should have gone to Atlanta. That's where he wanted to go. But Haslam was dumb enough to give him that contract, guarantee the bag, and that's why he's here. Browns fans have been through the ringer ever since the team came back to Cleveland after the original Browns moved to Baltimore. Dreadful quarterbacks, awful quarterbacks, bad coaches, bad management. All of it. You know the deal. Johnny Manziel, a homeless person, according to Sal Palantonio, once told Jimmy Haslam, I need you to take Johnny Manziel to save Cleveland. And this guy did it. And that's how Deshaun Watson is here in the first place. But Cleveland fans can deal with anything and everything. But they've never, and rightfully so, embraced Deshaun Watson, because he had no interest in going to Cleveland in the first place. He's disrespectful. He's rude. This weekend when, he basically destroyed the fans, flipped them the double bird for booing. I mean, and by the way, when he got hurt a few years ago and the fans cheered, I defended the amazing fans in Cleveland. They weren't cheering an injury. They were cheering the fact that they never had to see his lying, fraudulent, despicable face as the starting quarterback again for the rest of the season. That's what they were cheering. That press conference on Saturday should have been the end to his time in Cleveland. They should have had Shedeur Sanders as the starter, Gabriel as the number 2. They should have cut Deshaun Watson. It's really as simple as that. And I understand the cap ramifications. I understand everything when you look at the salary cap. I was not a math major at Syracuse, but I understand this, right? 86.2 mil. 86.2 mil in terms of a 2027 cap hit if the Browns did the right thing and cut Deshaun Watson today. So I get it, right? I totally understand that. I don't care. You pay the 86.2 mil. It doesn't matter. Everyone is under contract who's worthy. The roster is so young, and you still draft your quarterback. It's not like you have to play around in the free agency market next year. You don't in any way, shape, or form. Your quarterback, in theory, if you did this right, is either Shedeur Sanders or someone in the first round next year. Again, let's see what the record is. You have 2 first-round picks. You have the Rams pick. You have your own pick. We'll see what happens. Who else needs a quarterback? Where they fit into the draft conversation, where they are in terms of the draft order, who needs to make a trade. The plan was actually easy. And I would not have called for Watson to be cut before that news conference on Saturday. That was basically just taking a blowtorch to all the diehard, amazing, passionate fans in Cleveland. Well, Deshaun Watson today talked to the press.
First off, I want to address the comments from Saturday after the game. I think just, human nature, just myself being very emotional, putting a lot of time these last 2 years to, get back and, spend time in this facility, in the city, meeting a lot of different people in the community. I thought I was going to get, a little different response. But, I think, my emotions got the best of me. And, my comments wasn't intending to go at any of the fans around in the city. Because there's been a lot of great fans that have been supporting me.
On behalf of all Cleveland Browns fans, we do not accept the apology in any way, shape, or form. You can't. There's not a human being I know who roots for the Browns who is going to say, you know what, Deshaun, we accept. I mean, look at these poor people. They've had to deal with the worst of the worst. And Deshaun Watson is the worst of them all. I mean, my goodness. I mean, they're flipping off Deshaun Watson during that press conference. They're wearing paper bags to work today in Cleveland. I mean, it's about as brutal as it gets. So Watson tried today to clean it up after being named the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. No one who's a fan of the Cleveland Browns is going to say, you got it, Deshaun. We'll give you a 15th chance. Please, what a joke. Browns schedule, it's just impossible, and it's ironic rolled into one. I mean, you take a look at the first game in Jacksonville, and by the way, of course, the Jags and the Browns got together in that, deal for Travis Hunter on draft day a couple of years ago. There's no shot Cleveland wins that game. And take a look at who they play in week number 2. Baker Mayfield's and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You think Baker Mayfield's going to have a nice big chip on his shoulder going up against Cleveland? He got thrown out so they can get Watson, and obviously Baker wanted to stay there forever. Now Baker Mayfield, everybody loves him. Deshaun Watson, worst trade in the history of sports, worst contract in the history of sports. You think about all the draft picks they gave up, lack of availability, the injury history, the way he has no idea what the hell he's doing at press conferences. It's awful. And you look at week 3 for Cleveland, they will be at home in week number 3. So the first couple of games, they are on the road. When Baker shreds Cleveland, that is going to be the ultimate insult to insults when it's all said and done. I mean, you think that, that's a Thursday night game against Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh. That's going to be a mess. So I went through this. If you're looking at wins and losses for the Cleveland Browns, right, I want you to stare at this schedule. I think the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson, who, again, have really good young talents elsewhere other than quarterback, I think this team is basically a 2-win team. I think they could beat Atlanta at home, and I don't see other wins, especially when you look at it with Carolina coming to town, and Carolina is the first home game, and you know the fans hate Deshaun Watson, so you know and rightly so, they're going to be 0-2. Watson comes to town. Boo! Practice and say it with me. This team is a disaster. I think the second win is probably Tennessee. I think that's possible based upon their defense going up against the Tennessee offense, but that's it. What a mess. So instead of having any kind of pop and sizzle and juice, can you imagine being a player in that locker room on the heels of Deshaun Watson, who doesn't give a damn about anything other than himself? You know Deshaun Watson's been terrible as a player, terrible as a leader, doesn't care about the fans, the players. Every single player in that locker room had to be deflated and just absolutely flat as a pancake hearing that news today. Man, I feel so terrible for the great Browns fans. Bag it, Browns. That's a disaster. Top to bottom, what a mess. As if there wasn't enough of a circus in Cleveland, the Browns are now in other headlines. Tight end dae'quan Wright, who was released by the Browns after their second preseason game, now expected to play for LSU if he clears waivers. This according to his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, who told ESPN's Adam Schefter on Sunday night. Wright is believed to be the first person to have an agreement to return to play in college after signing with an NFL team as an undrafted free agent. Todd Monken was blown away by what is transpiring.
How you've been handling the dae'quan Wright situation just seems weird, right? It seems like he's in the college transfer portal. He hadn't practiced, but then I saw him warming up after the rain delay today.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say. You know. I wondered why Lane Kiffin reached out a week ago. Now I know. I didn't know. Now I know. I didn't call him back. Now I guess I should have.
On Wednesday, Wright officially entered the transfer portal after he and a group of athletes who filed a lawsuit in Louisiana were granted a temporary restraining order to return to college for one more season. And this officially is the theater of the absurd. And there are a lot of different layers and levels to this. And look, we saw this in college basketball earlier this year at Alabama, and, you know, you had to be cognizant, if you were the NCAA, that this was going to be a problem. This is all about the 5-for-5 rule and the 2022 class, and all the NCAA had to do was be aware and understand what was going to happen. Have some foresight. See the forest through the trees. Whatever cliche you want to do. Instead, the optics on this are officially a mess. You have a guy who signs as an undrafted free agent in Philly, then goes to Cleveland, and now he's going to LSU? Think about that as a trajectory. Eagles, Browns, LSU. Do we now have to start putting college football in air quotes? College football? What are we talking about here? And I understand amateurism is dead, and it should be. All these players, for what they've done forever, for their schools, and for themselves, of course they should get paid for name, image, and likeness. But this is out of control. And then you take a look at the Lane Kiffin portion of all this. Now, Wright, obviously, who was a good player, he was a second-team All-SEC at the tight end position. You know, he played for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. Lane, sometimes just because a guy is eligible or just because there's some kind of court ruling doesn't mean you have to get involved. Do the right thing. Seriously. SEC players can't go from one team to another, one program to another in the conference, right? So all of a sudden now you can go from Ole Miss to the NFL to another team in the conference. This is not going to end well. It's just such a bad look. Honestly, I feel bad for Wright, who's trying to do the right thing for himself. I don't blame him at all. You know, he realized he wasn't going to make it for the Cleveland Browns. You see what transpired with the ruling, and, you know, he thinks he could go back to college, play for Lane Kiffin, and help his draft stock, which would equal helping his bank account and his future. So I'm not blaming him at all. The system is broken. It's been broken for a very long time. The NCAA is completely at fault. They don't see anything from a narrow perspective or from a broad perspective. They don't have the ability to think in the box or outside the box, to take a look at something for 5 minutes or how it's going to impact you in 5 years. So this was easily preventable. I don't think there's any question about it. But once again, the NCAA has no idea what the hell it's doing. And listen, Lane Kiffin, sometimes you got to know when to say when. This was not one for Lane Kiffin to say, yeah, you know what? I had Wright at Ole Miss. Maybe he could help me win a couple games. Sometimes it's better when it comes to this kind of clear nonsense and garbage. Stay out of it. I mean, perception is reality when it comes to our guy Leno. Coming up, the Raiders avoided a catastrophe with the news on Jeanty and the sprained ankle, but it's not anything more serious. But with his status uncertain, has my opinion changed on starting Fernando Mendoza week 1? That, plus the rest of my Monday musings from around the NFL. Geno, Jameis, Bo, oh my. I mean, that guy must have been feeling some sense of relief now that the Raiders fans all over the place are breathing a little easier today. And anyone who drafted Jeanty in fantasy, by the way, still can't take him number 1 overall. Plus, who's doing a draft before all 3 weeks of the preseason are over? But I digress. It's just a sprained ankle. Look, when I was reading the California Post and following the California Post on Sunday and getting all the news alerts from the California Post Sports, it didn't seem like this was going to be minor because we were talking about Jeanty not being able to put any weight on his ankle and needed help getting off the field. And there was a prayer circle from the players, and that is normally ominous and spells season ending. This, though, is about as good as it gets. Sprained ankle, season starts in 3 weeks. We could take a breath and at least monitor the situation. And you know what? I'm so amped for Jeanty. Things have a monster second season. Pete Carroll and Pete Carroll's dopey son, who coached the offensive line, wasted Jeanty's rookie season. I think Jeanty's going to be amazing this year. And even if he doesn't play week 1 and you have to go with Mike Washington, the promising rookie, you can still beat the Miami Dolphins. If, in fact, Fernando Mendoza is the starter. By the way, lost in the sauce from everything that transpired and how Jeanty got hurt. He was diving from a low pass from Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins can't even hit his running back in the flat. Of course, Fernando Mendoza should be the week 1 starter. We're going to keep saying it every single day on Schein Time. And if for some reason they start Kirk Cousins, because that's the way Kubiak has kind of laid this out, guess what? Halftime of week 1 against Miami, I don't want to see Kirk Cousins smiling ever again. I don't want to see him on the football field. He was the worst quarterback in the NFL as a Falcon over the last 2 years. But thank goodness here on Jeanty. How about Geno Smith and his perfection in Pittsburgh? I told you, the Jets are going to be good this year. Seriously, we've been banging that drum. Love Geno Smith. Love the trade. And preseason's preseason, but perfection is perfection. You know what we do when it comes to preseason reaction and overreaction? If there's a player that hits home exactly what you believe and confirms your take, oh, baby, buckle up, buttercup. And Aaron Glenn, to his credit, just let Geno play that drive, got him out. This is awesome. Absolutely incredible. I think Geno Smith and the Jets are going to be good, interesting, fun this year. I really believe it. We said as much the day of the trade. I've said as much after the draft, said as much last week. I think Aaron Glenn has learned everything that happened that was awful last year in terms of dealing with the press and bad in-game management. And I can't stress enough here how I think the Jets over is one of the locks of the NFL season. Geno Smith throwing to Garrett Wilson, throwing to Cooper, throwing to Sadiq, certified freak. Breece Hall is going to be ready for week number 1. The offensive line is strong. They bring in Demario Davis. And Geno Smith can play. He got raided last year. Pete Carroll ruined him. Go back to the Seattle version of Geno Smith. And look at the Jets' schedule. I'm telling you, it's more manageable than people realize. They're going to beat Tennessee week number 1. Then they're going to beat Green Bay. It's one of my big upset special picks when you take a look at it in week number 2. And the Jets are going to be playing every single game in the afternoon, which is great for the Jets. I mean, look at this. They can beat Cleveland. They can beat Miami a couple times. They should be able to beat the Raiders at home. I think they can absolutely beat Arizona. I would not be surprised to see them split with New England. Bam. That's 7-8 wins. That's Jets football. And they'll be set up for success and the playoffs in 2027. So I think things are going to be different with the Jets this season. Jameis Winston is telling us things are already different with the Giants under John Harbaugh.
I'm just grateful for Coach Harbaugh's leadership. He holds everybody to a standard, just like he holds himself. We see him grinding and working and studying hours and hours of tape and communicating with the quarterbacks, communicating with the offensive line, communicating with the defensive line, communicating with the DBs. He has his hand in a relationship with every position group, and I think that speaks volumes because he's holding everybody to that standard, coaches included.
So, that soundbite from Jameis Winston following the Giants-Dolphins preseason game where Winston looked great. I love it. And I love Winston as a backup quarterback. Jameis Winston has been around the block. He's perfect for the Giants, helping out Jackson Dart, backing up Jackson Dart, and being a true pros pro in the locker room. You want to talk about accountability? You want to talk about holding everyone to a certain standard? Let's talk about a couple things that happened that weren't very good from the Giants over the weekend. John Harbaugh cannot keep Odell Beckham Jr. Jameis Winston threw a beautiful pass to Odell Beckham Jr. in the back of the end zone, and it went right through Odell's hands. That's a drop. Take a look at the Giants' wide receiver depth chart, because we're at the point where if you're a real Giants fan, you can't think, if you're worth your salt, that Odell should make the team. Malik Neighbors is going to be a star, and he's trending in the direction where he's going to play week number 1. Harbaugh brought in Calvin Austin, who he coached against in those battles with Baltimore and Pittsburgh for all those years. Brings in Mooney. I think Malachi Fields was phenomenal at Notre Dame. We raved about that pick. You saw him last week catch a touchdown. Slayton can still play. Braxton Berrios is making the team because he is going to be the return specialist. So you have 6 wide receivers that are on this depth chart ahead of Odell Beckham Jr. And I don't want to talk about what he did in the past or the one-handed grab or if you or a family member owns an Odell Beckham Jr. jersey. Look at those 6 names, including Berrios on special teams. Do you honestly think that Odell Beckham Jr. is better than any of them? Come on. You want to talk about accountability? You know what? I demand that we hold the fans for the Giants accountable. Seriously. I think part of the problem is, and because the Maras pay attention to the fans, you guys are always on planet delusional when it comes to Giants history, which is awesome, and I appreciate it, and it's great. But that doesn't mean Lawrence Taylor is walking through that door. You want to cherish Odell Beckham Jr. for his time in New York? Great. Doesn't mean he should be on the roster for 2026. You have a new head coach, new direction, new accountability. That should not include Odell Beckham Jr. being part of this team. And honestly, let's take it a step further. And I didn't think going into camp this should be the case, but I don't think that Tyrone Tracy's going to make the Giants. I mean, if we want to start talking about accountability, you saw a couple weeks ago now in the preseason, Tracy with a Cecil Fielder swinging a miss on in pass protection in the play that got Jackson Dart absolutely clobbered. And then he fumbled over the weekend against Miami, not to mention Devin Singletary, who I thought going into camp, and I like Devin Singletary, but he was a day ball guy, brought him from Buffalo. I thought Singletary could be in jeopardy. Devin Singletary has been excellent. Look at the Giants' depth chart at the running back position. Scatterboo, gotta stay healthy, but you trust him. Najee Harris, signing Kim right after Tracy whiffed on that block. I thought that was noteworthy. And if Harbaugh likes Singletary, and I think that he does, and if Matt Nagy and the staff think that he could work into the mix, I think that Tracy is not going to be long for the world with the New York Football Giants, because the word to stress is accountability when it comes to John Harbaugh and the New York Football Giants. I think the most important thing that happened in preseason this weekend, Bo Nix back on the field. But what was Bo feeling about being back in the action?
I think the strongest emotion was just when I got out there, it was like riding a bike. Nothing really changed.
Bo Nix being on the football field and playing for the Denver Broncos was the most important thing that has happened this entire preseason. Simple as that. I needed to see it. The Broncos needed to see it. Sean Payton needed to see it. And that soundbite, short, sweet, purposeful. Returned to the field like riding a bike. And it wasn't a bike with a flat tire, because I wanted to pay attention to see if Bo Nix was going to have any hesitation or not have the confidence, or if he had any kind of limp. He was dropping balls in the bucket. That throw to Harvey for the touchdown was unbelievable. His athleticism, his accuracy, all on display. So I now look at the Broncos as a team that'll make the playoffs. Because even though I was obsessed with their offseason, the Waddle deal, unreal. I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Waddle had 100 catches this year. Sean Payton's a genius. Davis Webb now calling the plays. Cortland Sutton as your number 2 wide receiver. Depth and talent at running back. The defense is the best in the business. I just needed to see if Bo Nix was healthy. Remember, he fractured and broke that ankle right after the divisional round game. Then he had a cleanup surgery. So if we're waiting on Bo Nix, it wasn't going to happen. But now we can start talking about the Broncos winning the division again. The Broncos making a march to the championship game in the AFC. The Broncos' defense is elite. Their coaching is superb. Bo Nix still has to get to another level. He has been, first couple years as an NFL quarterback, tough and clutch, especially in the fourth quarter. He can be more consistent and more dominant quarters 1, 2, and 3. This, to me, is the biggest deal of anything that's happened during 2026 NFL preseason games. Bo Nix being out there and being healthy. Now we can start talking about the Broncos riding into the playoffs once again. Coming up next, the Dodgers have been on a tear since dropping 3 or 4 to Milwaukee. Are the Brewers the team with the best shot to knock them off? Or could it be the Phillies or the Yankees? Keep it here on Schein Time. The LA Dodgers have won 6 straight games since losing 3 of 4 and the season series to the Milwaukee Brewers. The Dodgers are on fire, and it's another example this past week of how the LA Dodgers are going to win the World Series. The Dodgers, and it seemed like this would not be the case after that aforementioned series loss, when you look at what transpired against the Brewers, they're now 1 game behind Milwaukee when you look at getting home field advantage in the National League. Now, after that Brewers series, they weren't even going to get a bye, but they have bounced back brilliantly. And what do you know? It's because of the pitching. Take a look at what happened this weekend for the LA Dodgers, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, with Yamamoto, with Skubal, with Snell. This is what you call domination, perfection. Yamamoto, 6+, 9 strikeouts. Skubal was lights out, 11 strikeouts in 7 innings pitched. And I'll tell you, the line that really got me going and watching the games, the outing that got me going, was Blake Snell. 6 innings pitched, no runs, 6 strikeouts. Because I know Skubal is going to deliver. I know Yamamoto is going to deliver. If you can get Snell back to being healthy and back to his Cy Young self, it's over. it's a wrap. Not to mention the great news, and Jack Harris and Dylan Hernandez were all over this from a California Post reporting standpoint. Shohei Ohtani is going to get back in the rotation before Labor Day. And that means he's going to be ready for October, which is what it's all about. So if you were looking for signs from the universe that the Dodgers were going to crack and crumble, forget about it. It's not happening. The pitching is elite. The pitching is unbelievable. They know how to navigate 162 games, deal with the dog days, how to survive injuries and insanity and series defeats and slumps that we saw with the Dodgers in July and half of the month of August. This team is officially back, and everybody in baseball should be on notice. Nobody at the end of the day is beating the LA Dodgers. You like 6 straight? How about 9 straight? How about my guy Kyle Schwarber? Are you kidding me? Walked off the Cardinals on Sunday to send the Phillies to their 3rd straight series sweep. How about 2 outs in the 9th, and Schwarber absolutely cranked one. He's one of my favorite athletes in sports, one of my favorite hitters to watch, has been forever. I love Schwarber. I'm obsessed. Thing is, when you look at the Philadelphia Phillies, I'm not surprised that they are on fire, spelled out with a PH for the Phillies and Philadelphia. Schwarber is locked and loaded. The team is ridiculously confident. Give Don Mattingly a contract extension. I think they are the biggest threat to the Dodgers. No one's beating the Dodgers. If I had to rank the teams in terms of threat, Philadelphia would be next on the list. Cubs would be after that. I don't respect the Brewers in any way, shape, or form. This is not a fluke, spell that with a PH as well, in any way, shape, or form when it comes to the Philadelphia Phillies. And frankly, any team in the National League would be the favorite. Any of the playoff teams, you could throw the Brewers and the Padres and the Braves into the mix with the aforementioned Dodgers and Phillies and the Chicago Cubs. Any of those teams would win the American League. But we had our producer Griff call Major League Baseball and talk to Rob Manfred's office before the show. You can't take any of those teams and put them in the American League for the playoffs. And that's good news for my New York Yankees. I would make the case last week was the best week the Yankees have had since Aaron Judge went on the injured list. They took 2 or 3 from the Jays over the weekend. And listen, just like me, Spencer Jones is loving the George Lombard Jr. experience.
What's it like playing with George up here? Playing with George? It's fun. I think he told me after he scored, he's like, man, I feel like we've been doing that a lot, where he gets on base and I hit a ball in the gap and let him run around the bases. So it's fun to be able to do that with him here, and then just watch the kid play every day, because he wants it more than anybody, and he's gonna give it every single day, and I've been seeing that for years. So I'm just glad that everybody gets to see it up here.
Best week the Yankees have had since Aaron Judge went on the injured list, and I love the energy and the juice from George Lombard Jr. Absolutely, positively love the Yankees winning the series from the Blue Jays yesterday. I went to a sun-drenched Yankee Stadium, took my son Theo. He was fired up. Great at bats. Jazz, absolutely fantastic. Spencer Jones was lacing the ball. Ben Rice, Austin Wells. This was absolutely tremendous, terrific. You saw Cam Schlittler get it done on Friday. Dylan Cease tipped of the cap for what he did on Saturday. But the Yankees take 2 out of 3 from the Jays. This on the heels of how they swept away the Baltimore Orioles. Cody Bellinger, in somewhat surprising and awesome fashion, returned to the lineup yesterday. So that was a great boost. And then you take a look at the fact that Judge actually hit off a tee. Now, I'll gloss over for the sake of the take and the conversation. Giancarlo Stanton fell down as he was running, as he's trying to get back. I mean, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. We're not going to see Stanton again for the rest of the year. Also, I didn't think we would, but you'll see Judge back, and that's great. Bellinger coming back, that was a pretty awesome jolt. And listen, I'm just fired up here because the American League stinks. Every single team in the AL West is under 500. The Astros fired their general manager today. The White Sox had a walk-off. They're in first place. Nobody takes them seriously. And now, if you take a look at the standings, you have Tampa in first, 3 games ahead of the Yankees, who are 3 games ahead of Boston. Yankees and Astros going to have a series at Yankee Stadium. And then the big showdown in the South Bronx this weekend, 4 games with the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox. That is a massive series. And for the first time in ages, I'm confident in the Yankees. And if they get, when they get Max Fried back, that's going to be a big deal. Also, with the injury report being positive on Judge, with Bellinger coming back, I got to tell you, with the pitching, with the way that the Yankees have been able to hit a little bit, and the fielding, and Trent Grisham with great at-bats, and he's making plays, and the energy and the juice from Lombard, I'm getting a little greedy on the Yankees, okay? I'm not on planet delusional when it comes to this team. But the New York Yankees can and should, and I'm starting to come around to will, beat out Tampa for the division. And if they do that, the Yankees will get the 1 seed. And not to go all yogi on you, but you can't lose if you don't play. So the Yankees not playing in the wild card round would be great. I would love to avoid a Yankees-Red Sox first-round series if I possibly can from a Yankee perspective. So the Yankees having a bye in the first round, setting up their pitching, hopefully Fried is healthy, and you have Schlittler, and you have Cole, and you have Fried in a rotation. Weathers got hurt on Saturday. That sucks. He should be back for the playoffs, and he'll be in the bullpen, which should be awesome from that standpoint, as the Yankees could use that help with Weathers in the bullpen. But I am now officially raising the bar. Raising the bar on the Yankees in the final 6 weeks of the regular season, because it's there. And if the Yankees can get that 1 seed, that'll increase the likelihood that the Schein Time preseason pick of Dodgers over Yankees for the World Series is going to hit. Still to come, Klay Thompson is taking his talents to South Beach. So, does he make the Heat contenders? And how does the other big NBA signing of the weekend move the needle? Find out next. Giannis Antetokounmpo's Miami Heat added an interesting piece over the weekend. Klay Thompson is going to sign a 2-year, nearly $13 million deal with the Miami Heat. This after clearing waivers following the contractual buyout with the Dallas Mavericks, sources telling our good friend Shams Charania of ESPN. So there's a couple of important things to me when you take a look at this marriage. Number one, I love Klay Thompson. I think Klay Thompson is the most underappreciated, underrated star that we've seen in the last 30 years, because he was a prolific, all-time, unbelievable, great three-point shooter, just the second best on his own team. You think about some of the great moments in Warrior history. You think about the Game 6 against OKC and the conference finals. Klay Thompson was a terrific defensive player, a two-way star. You look at Klay Thompson's resume, it is absolutely positively off the charts. I mean, look at that. All NBA defensive team, and this guy's been an all-star. He's been an Olympic champion, and I think the world of him. Obviously, 4-time NBA champ. You know, he's been through monster injuries, had the ability to come back. Klay Thompson is one of my all-time favorite NBA players. And I think he's a good fit in Miami. We've talked about it, right? He can still shoot the three. Giannis needed some help on the outside. You have Bam, you have Giannis. I believe in Heat culture. I believe in Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra and, you know, the pixie dust that gets sprinkled. Not that Klay needs in any way, shape, or form to learn how to win. He defines winning. He's won more than anyone who's on that team and on that roster. I just still don't think comparatively the Miami Heat are very good. I think the Knicks are the team to beat in the Eastern Conference. I think Philadelphia is number 2. I would put the Pistons ahead of the Miami Heat. I would put the Cleveland Cavaliers ahead of the Heat. You know, I don't understand why Vegas loves the Boston Celtics. I would put them behind Miami. Miami has the 5th best odds in the East. I'd make the case the Pacers should be ahead of Miami. The Hawks should be ahead of Miami. And if the Kawhi deal goes through to Toronto, I'd put the Raptors ahead of Miami. So it can be both a terrific, tremendous fit, a logical move, but it does not move the meter in any way, shape, or form when it comes to the Miami Heat. Giannis Antetokounmpo, again, no-brainer. Love Giannis, love Spoelstra, love everything about what Antetokounmpo brings and who he is and what he does. But I don't think all of a sudden the East has become a bit of a powerhouse. A lot of teams are supremely confident, and they should be. I don't look at the Miami Heat and say this team is going to have home court in the first round of the playoffs. I think that we are still looking at the Miami Heat as a 6 or 7 seed in the Eastern Conference. I just think that all those aforementioned teams are better as we speak today, compare and contrast to Miami.
Who has more points scored all time? DeMar DeRozan or the following players? First up, we have Allen Iverson.
My brain says AI, but I think there's a reason you're asking me this. I think DeMar DeRozan has more points than Allen Iverson.
DeMar DeRozan has more points than Allen Iverson. Next up, we have Dwayne Wade.
There's no way DeRozan has more than Flash.
Then it should be Dwayne Wade.
Yeah,
right?
I'll say Dwayne Wade.
No, it's DeMar DeRozan.
Oh my God, no way.
Next up, we have Damian Lillard. Top 75 player all time.
DeMar
DeMar
DeRozan.
DeRozan.
Seasons, yeah.
Next up, we have Kevin Garnett.
The big ticket? This has to be Garnett. There's no way.
No, it's DeMar DeRozan. Next up, we have Tim Duncan.
No, it's Tim Duncan.
It's DeMar DeRozan.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Paul Pierce, the truth. I want you to tell me the truth here. DeMar DeRozan.
I hope so.
How about Steph Curry? I mean, we're talking arguably the greatest point guard ever.
He is the greatest point guard ever in my opinion.
Same draft class. I mean, Steph has to have more points scored, right?
The only thing I'm thinking is Steph had ankle injuries early in his career where he missed
But
some
like,
time.
it's Steph Curry.
It's Steph Curry, yeah. Steph Curry?
It's DeMar DeRozan.
That's disgusting.
DeMar DeRozan, yes, that's DeMar DeRozan. That was breaking the internet with all those points. Just agreed to a one-year deal with the Denver Nuggets. Did you know he's 16th on the all-time NBA scoring list? No. I'm with that guy. I had absolutely no idea. But I've always loved and defended DeMar DeRozan. I've always felt bad for DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan in Toronto with Kyle Lowry, they were so amazing together for all those years, and I always loved those Raptors teams and respected them, and they were dominant in the regular season, and then they had Dwayne Casey, and they couldn't ultimately get it done in the playoffs, and then, of course, they had to make that trade, and I felt bad for DeMar because he loved Toronto, loved the city, loved his teammates, but he was the guy in the Kawhi deal. And it was a no-brainer, and they had to make that trade. And then, you know, DeRozan bounced around. And listen, I love DeMar as a player. He's phenomenal in terms of talking about mental health, and he's an advocate, and he wants people to always make sure that they have, you know, individuals to talk to. And I'm a big fan that he could still score coming off the bus. I mean, Sacramento, Chicago, no matter where he goes, he's a walking bucket. And in that regard, that's good for Denver, who needed offense. But they're not better than they were when they had Peyton Watson. And they were the dopes who traded Peyton Watson in the first place. So I like DeRozan. I like the fit. But I don't think the Denver Nuggets got better in the offseason. So the big loser in this whole thing is Nikola Jokic. And that's not great for the Denver Nuggets. But wait, there's more.
Well, that was an incredible win. I am very fortunate to be amongst you and to play in the same field where the same star hold it on our chest. And I'm proud of us. I'm proud of how far we've come. Man, this game, fate, brought us here as strangers, but this game, this star, this team will make us brothers. Yes.
That was Cowboys rookie offensive lineman Shaza Peets, the first NFL player from the Navajo Nation, and he was greeted warmly by the crowd in Arizona as he took the field for 6 snaps in the Cowboys' 34-13 win. Pete called the entire experience surreal, noted that it was impossible to explain the emotions that he felt when he was on the field. Dallas Cowboys head coach Brian Schottenheimer said he has never seen anything quite like the ovation and support that his young ball player received. And now the biggest question facing the New Mexico State and Kentucky product, whether or not he's going to make the team. But I think it's fair to say that he's made an impact regardless of the outcome. And I've seen that video what feels like 100 times this weekend. And I've been sent that video what feels like 100 different times on group chats. My buddy Ack, who played football in college, sent it on my favorite group chat, and we all had the chills. And it's, you know, if you understand what sports are all about, what friendship's all about. I mean, I have the chills as we play that for you. I mean, if you don't have the chills now, check your pulse. That is unbelievable stuff. That's the beauty of sports. That's the beauty of camaraderie. That's the beauty of community. That, to me, of all the press conferences and all the post-game locker room speeches at any level that we've seen all year long, that's the one. Man, I can't stop emoting watching it. It's special. It's perfect. You don't have any idea, I don't, in terms of what's next for him in his athletic career, but he'll always have that moment, that time to shine, that moment for everyone involved in the stands, in the locker room, on the field. Listen, that right there, that's the good stuff. That's why you love sports. That's the show. If you miss any portion of the show, just do what I do. Rewatch the show over and over and over again. Go to our YouTube page. It's brand new. Have you subscribed yet? Some of you have. Some of you haven't. I need you to subscribe. Like it, subscribe, like. I'm a subscribe first, like kind of guy, but I'm not going to judge you. I want you to do you. And we'll see you tomorrow on Schein Time.